Faza'il A'mal, More Trouble Than It's Worth, Part 27. Takhrij, Hadith Analysis, Part 1, 40 Hadith. In these remaining 4 videos, which will serve somewhat as an appendix or appendices to the main set of videos, I will go through Takhrij, and the previous video explained exactly what Takhrij is. So the first hadith we have is this one, and the hadith in the Arabic and English form I've translated as follows. Whoever memorizes and preserves for my people or for my nation 40 hadith relating to their religion, Allah will resurrect him on the Day of Judgment as a jurist, and I will be an intercessor and witness for him. So this is the hadith, and the simple grading of it is that it's da'if jiddan, or very weak. But to again educate you, I'll go through exactly how this hadith is weak. First thing is, it says in the black lettering, the author did not attribute this hadith to any specific source. He sufficed with just mentioning the hadith and not mentioning the narrator of the hadith. So who said this hadith, who heard it from the Prophet, who collected it in their work, and how was it transmitted to us. So none of this is mentioned. And on top of that, it's very weak. So again, this is a problematic state. So, but the author, Dr. Turkistany, he does give us the narration of this particular articulation of the hadith. It comes from a companion called Abu Darda, and it's collected by Imam Al-Bayhaqi in his book, The Branches of Faith, and Abu Bakr al-Shafi'i collects it, Ibn Hibban collects it, and the book that Ibn Hibban collects it in is called Al-Majruhin, or Those Who Have Been Criticized. And Ibn al-Jawzi, he collected it in his work called Al-Ilal Al-Mutanahiya fil Ahadith Al-Wahiyya. So a book dedicated to weak ahadith. Then there's this analysis of the isnad. The isnad is the chain of narration. This isnad from Abu Darda is very weak, and the narrations and the various manifestations of this hadith revolve around an individual called Abdul Malik ibn Harun ibn Antara. Abdul Malik ibn Harun ibn Antara. And he is matruk, he is rejected. In fact, some of the scholars say he is a liar. And even though there's other hadiths with similar wordings to this, all of these narrations are and these additions and these different manifestations, they're all weak, and they don't strengthen each other. So sometimes you have a hadith that has multiple versions and multiple forms, and because some are weak and some have some disruption within them, the various chains support each other. But all the chains of this hadith, none of them support each other. It says لا تخلو من الكذابين أو متروكين أو المجاهيل. None of these chains are free from liars, rejected narrators, or unknown narrators. And Ibn al-Jawzi himself, he criticized this, and he mentioned in the book that I mentioned previously. And in fact, he says that all of the narrations, all of them, in whichever way they come, they are weak. So this hadith is not just weak; it's very weak, and it shouldn't be promoted by anyone at any time. It contains liars, rejected, and unknown people. That's Dr. Turkistany's analysis, and he gives more analysis, but this video would be very long. Now I'll give you what you could find in the English language on the internet. So this is a website called islamweb.net, and he says the hadith that you're asking about, i.e. the one about the collecting of the 40 hadith, and you'll be raised as a jurist, and the Prophet Muhammad will be a witness for you. It says this is collected by Al-Ajluni in his book, and Daraqutni, another very famous hadith scholar, said all chains of this hadith is weak. No authentic chain for it is available. Ibn Hajar, a very famous 8th century scholar, which we have mentioned before, said, I collected all the chains of this hadith in a booklet. There is no chain that is safe from defects. Exactly what Ibn al-Jawzi, or similar to what Ibn al-Jawzi said. Al-Bayhaqi said, there is no sound chain for this hadith. Ibn Asakir said, all the chains of this hadith are not free from criticism. And Nadwi said in the preface to his 40 hadith, all Huffaz, great scholars of hadith, have agreed that this hadith is weak. And the modern day Sheikh Albani considered some of the chains as fabricated even. However, this hadith is reported by many various words and narrations. So this hadith should be stricken from the record and stricken from distribution. Stay tuned for Takhrij number 2.